Alright trainers, TaeganAdventures here. So, by the time you're watching this, Giratina would have arrived in Tier 5 raids in Pokémon Go. Some of you may know that Giratina has two forms, the Altered Forme and the Origin Forme. Now, the Origin Forme will be arriving slightly later in April, but from the 28th of March to the 2nd of April, the Altered Forme will start appearing in Tier 5 raids in Pokémon Go. These forms of Giratina are pretty interesting because these two forms have different stats. The Altered Forme has a more defensive focus, more bulky, more tanky, while the Origin Forme is more of a bulky attacker, so it's got more focus on its HP and attack stat. The Origin Forme is more useful in raids, gyms as well in fact. The Altered Forme is going to be pretty useful in the lower tiers of PvP like the Great and Ultra League. So now let me just go over Giratina's stats and move pool. So as you can see, Giratina has a pretty mediocre move pool. Shadow Claw and Dragon Breath as fast moves, and Dragon Claw, Ancient Power, and Shadow Sneak as charge moves. Not really spectacular unless you're talking about PvP, in which case Ancient Power is pretty useful in getting your Omni boost up. Dragon Claw is definitely a go-to charge move along with Shadow Claw for the quick move. So definitely Shadow Claw and Dragon Claw would be the best for DPS. But in regards to its weaknesses, Giratina is weak to Dark, Dragon, Ghost, Ice, and Fairy, and resists Fire, Water, Electric, Grass, Bug, and Poison. So definitely that would be a huge considering factor when choosing your counters for Giratina. If you're wondering about the perfect IV CPs with no weather boost, that will be 1931 CP. With the weather boost, which is in foggy and windy weather, it'll be 2414 CP. Now Giratina, keep in mind, is a very tanky Pokemon, so you need at least 3 to 5 people above level 35 if you want to beat it. If you're slightly lower level, lower than level 30, I would advise around 6 to 8 people. That should be a safe play for Giratina. For your ideal counters, you'll want to send in mostly your Dragon, Ice, and Dark types. So in terms of the Dragon types, you'd have a lot to pick from, like Palkia, Rayquaza, Dragonite, Salamence. Those are pretty good Rayquaza counters overall. They do pretty high DPS, especially with Draco Meteor. Well, in Dragonite's case, Outrage, because Draco Meteor is an exclusive move. Definitely try out those attackers with the movesets I will be listing on screen. If you want something more tanky, probably go for a Dialga. Dialga has an insane defense stat, as you can see. Dragon Tail and Draco Meteor would be the best on Dialga, especially since Dialga has been available. You should have had a good Dialga, or at least a Dialga by now, to use for Giratina. Latias and Latios for a more versatile option, a more balanced option, I would say. Not really a tank, not really an attacker, but somewhere in the middle ground. So if you're using a Latias, definitely try for Dragon Breath and Outrage. Whereas if you're using a Latios, you want Dragon Breath and Dragon Claw. Now, as for your ice types, there are only two good ice types out there, which are Mamoswine and Weavile. Of course, Mamoswine is a pretty good offensive Pokemon, but beware for Ancient Power, because Mamoswine does have pretty low defenses and is weak to rock type attacks, so definitely you want to be careful when sending in your ice types. As for Weavile though, Weavile is a decent Pokemon, if not for its low HP and defense. Faint Attack and Avalanche, or Ice Shard and Avalanche, is generally recommended for a Giratina. You can use Weavile as a dark type attacker with Faint Attack and Foul Play, however it doesn't have really good of a DPS, although Tyranitar does have a slightly better DPS than Weavile in terms of its dark type usage. Tyranitar does have some of the best stats in the game, having a sky high attack stat and pretty decent HP and defense, better than Weavile, so it can tank a few hits. In terms of ghost type counters though, there is only one really good ghost type counter, which is Gengar, but you want to be careful of Giratina's ghost type attacks because Gengar is a glass cannon. If I were to recommend a moveset, definitely Hex and Shadow Ball would be the most recommended. I know Shadow Claw, Shadow Ball has better cycle DPS and better overall DPS, but it is an exclusive move, so pretty hard to get a hold of a Gengar with Shadow Claw and Shadow Ball. So definitely Hex and Shadow Ball would be the most accessible and the most recommended. Some honorable mentions I would just like to put on this list would be Groudon with Dragon Tail and Earthquake, because it has such a high attack stat. I know Earthquake is neutral effective on Giratina Altered Forme, but definitely a good choice if you want to go for neutral, just hard-hitting moves. Less honorable mentions are Granbull with Bite and Play Rough, or Snarl and Play Rough. Definitely a good sleeper pick, I would say. Not as good as the other Pokemon I've listed before it, but if you are pretty desperate, definitely the Fairy typing on Granbull is going to come in useful here. In terms of how weather effects would affect Giratina, Giratina Altered Forme, Cloudy Weather would be beneficial for your fairy types, especially if they're holding a fairy type charge move like Granbull. Foggy will be useful for Giratina, but it'll also be useful for your own ghost types, especially if you want to bust out those Gengars. Definitely do it in Foggy Weather. Foggy Weather is also the time where you can get a weather boosted Giratina, so definitely another plus right there. Windy Weather will also boost counters dragon type attacks, so definitely the ideal weather for your dragon types like Palkia, Dialga, Dragonite, and Salamence. But definitely keep in mind that Giratina's dragon type moves will be boosted by the weather as well. If you're lucky enough to be in an area with snow, definitely bust out those ice types, because those ice types are going to get an attack boost, especially when they're wielding those ice type attacks. So if you want to use Giratina in PvP, go ahead, definitely try and use Giratina in PvP, especially with Ancient Power with the Omni boost right there. I'll leave it up to you how you'd want to use Giratina in gyms, raids, or PvP, but definitely Giratina is a pretty neat Pokemon and definitely one of my favorites as well. This will be all from me for now. Definitely stay tuned, because next time I will be covering Giratina's origin form as soon as that drops and as soon as I get the info. So until next time, I will be signing out right now. This has been TaeganAdventures. Peace out.